Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Abigail Robertson.
Good evening, I'm Eric Phillips. 50 years after American astronauts landed on the moon, NASA is ready to go back. The space agency says America is one step closer to returning to the lunar surface.
But that's just the beginning, as the final destination could be Mars.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
The successful launch of the Orion test spacecraft this summer is propelling NASA one step closer to a moon landing and possibly beyond.
We choose to go to the moon.
President John F. Kennedy's historic push for space exploration came well before scientists were sure it was possible.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Now, 50 years after Neil Armstrong first set foot on the moon, the U.S. plans to return.
The next man and the first woman on the moon will be American astronauts.
NASA hopes the 5-year timeline will also put Mars within reach.
Our objective will be to establish a permanent presence on the lunar surface, and from there we will develop the capabilities to journey to the red planet of Mars.
NASA Chief Jim Bridenstine says the moon will be a proving ground and potential launch pad.
It's the best place for us to live and work on another world so that we can ultimately go to Mars.
If all goes as planned, the first human mission to Mars could come as soon as 2033.
People say, why are you accelerating the mission to the moon? Well, because it accelerates our mission to Mars.
The next leap into space will require working with commercial partners. This summer, Blue Origin tested engines for its own lunar lander. And earlier this year, SpaceX successfully docked its automated Crew Dragon capsule at the International Space Station. Assembling in front of the retired space shuttle responsible for more space flights than any other spacecraft, Vice President Pence said Tuesday that American spaceflight is back.
Working with our industry leaders, before the year is out, the United States will once again send American astronauts into space on American rockets from American soil.
It's been 50 years since a historic day for all Americans. On July 20th, 1969, man first stepped foot on the moon.
And while marking a triumph for science, God also kept coming up on missions to the moon. CBN's Paul Strand brings us that often untold part of the story.
Getting to and landing on the moon may have been one of mankind's greatest accomplishments, but the astronauts who reached it didn't leave God out of the picture. Historian William Federer points to the Apollo 11 moonwalkers.
Before they get out of the lunar module, they have a moment of silence, and Buzz Aldrin celebrates communion. He pours the grape juice in 1/6 gravity, and it does a slow little circle, and he reads John 15, I'm the vine, you are the branches, and he takes bread that was partly consumed at the communion service before he launched. He saved a piece of the bread and he celebrated communion. So the first items that were consumed on the moon was communion.
The world didn't hear it because a famous atheist had given NASA grief over Apollo 8 astronauts publicly reading from the Bible.
Madalyn Murray O'Hair had threatened to sue because Apollo 8 had mentioned God. They read from the book of Genesis.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
As Apollo 11 headed back to Earth, Buzz Aldrin said this to a listening world.
Reflecting on the events of the past several days, a verse from Psalms comes to mind. When I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers, and the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him?
9 months later, when an accident on board Apollo 13 might have doomed its 3 astronauts to die in space, much of the planet turned to God.
President Nixon calls the nation to pray. And they have prayer on the Chicago Board of Trade and the Vatican and the Wailing Wall all around the world.
Lord, your astronauts will come back safe.
Apollo 6, recovery, over. Well, the one's placed in at this time, the 3 chutes are just placed in the water.
The exploration of space has been hazardous adventure. The voyage of Apollo 13 dramatized its risks.
With the crew alive and back on Earth, mankind thanked God.
President Nixon has a national day of Thanksgiving to celebrate this.
One of the last Apollo flights featured Mission Control's Charles Duke getting to walk on the moon. He spoke of it later.
I used to think that, I'm paraphrasing, going to the moon would be the greatest achievement. He says, but my walk with Jesus is more memorable because it's an everyday affair. So just a fascinating faith that Charles Duke had, plus all the astronauts. Jim Irwin became, Apollo 15 became an evangelical minister, and Apollo 14 left a microfilm copy of the King James Bible on the moon.
It's interesting how many of those men who flew far into the heavens couldn't get the God of heaven out of their thoughts. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
All right, Paul, an expression of faith even out in space. Well, this year, the Trump administration officially authorized the creation of a space command to bring the military's diverse operations in space under one body. The president says the move is necessary to protect American interest in, quote, the next war-fighting domain. There are currently some 18,000 military and civilian personnel working in space operations. The new command will unify those departments and also develop doctrine and strategy to protect national security in space. The president says the Space Command is a precursor to the newest planned branch of the armed services, the Space Force.
And getting to the moon isn't just a priority for the U.S. This year, a company in Israel sent the first ever private spacecraft to land on the moon. While it ended in a crash landing, Chris Mitchell brings us this look back at its launch and what it could mean for the future of space exploration in Israel.
The spacecraft is called Bereshit, a reference to the words "in the beginning" from Genesis. While only about the size of a washing machine, its mission is out of this world. After launching from Cape Canaveral, the plan will include several lunar orbits before making a soft landing on the moon's surface.
Actually, the spacecraft will be assembled on the launcher, and here in Israel, the control room and the teams are at the last stage of readiness for the launch.
The 40-day voyage culminates with a landing scheduled for April 11th. It will then send back video and high-resolution pictures and perform experiments. The mission has two goals. One is called the Apollo effect, hoping to inspire the next generation.
We want the Israeli kids and the Israeli youth, we want to encourage them to learn STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and we hope that the mission will create the effect and encourage them. The second goal is to promote the space industry here in Israel. I think we got it. One of the goals is already achieved.
And Tebby says Space IL wants to show a small country with a small budget can join the prestigious moon landing club of the U.S., Russia, and China. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin calls the venture Zionism at its finest. The spacecraft is also bringing a time capsule, including a miniature copy of the Bible, along with Israeli national symbols, including the saying, Am Israel High, the people of Israel live. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The federal government is using facial recognition technology to scan hundreds of millions of Americans' faces without their consent. That story when we come back.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back. Well, facial recognition may look like a crime-fighting tool, but it's proving to be controversial on Capitol Hill.
It is indeed. Fingerprints and DNA analysis have been around for a long time, but as technology advances and facial recognition is used more frequently, there comes a concern over the question of consent. Today's latest tech has been featured in sci-fi movies for decades.
This is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise.
Good evening, John.
You can move the old-fashioned.
Now, life wildly imitates art when faces and pictures we post on social media are instantly recognized. For some, it's frightening. On Capitol Hill, skepticism about facial recognition programs being rolled out by Customs and Border Protection and the TSA.
To be clear, CBP is only comparing the picture taken against photos of previously provided by travelers to the U.S. government for the purposes of international travel. This is not a surveillance program.
Perhaps not, but the technology has some flaws.
Age, race, and sex. There are demographic effects. Quantifying those in a statistically valid manner is what we're currently doing.
So is that women and dark-skinned people?
Yes.
To better illustrate this, an ACLU study used facial recognition to compare members of Congress with 25,000 arrest photos.
That software incorrectly matched 28 members with individuals who had criminal records. Although the misidentified members included both Democrats and Republicans, men and women, and a wide range of ages, nearly 40% of the false matches were people of color. This is unacceptable.
New safeguards are now in place after a computer hack exposed information that, in the wrong hands, could lead to those deep fakes you've heard all about.
Our main network has these protocols on them, but we didn't have them on this type of system.
Experts believe issues with picture quality will improve over time. And what about privacy? ICE has been comparing driver's licenses in 3 states against their records without public knowledge.
I do not believe that anyone has a reasonable expectation of privacy in a government ID photo, period.
When it comes to identifying criminals, some say the benefits of the technology outweigh the negatives.
Effective facial recognition technologies can improve law enforcement by ridding this process of bias and human error.
Now, on the international level, China could be the country shaping surveillance standards at the United Nations. The Financial Times is reporting multiple Chinese companies are proposing new standards in the UN's International Telecommunication Union. They are said to include facial recognition, video monitoring, city and vehicle surveillance as well.
Well, the future of car ownership is here. See how it's transforming our city roads all the way up to your driveway. Coming up next.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Artificial intelligence is no longer the future, and nowhere is that more evident than in self-driving vehicles.
CBN's Gabe LaMonica takes us on a bus ride to show us what's on the horizon.
You might think that self-driving cars or buses like this one are a thing of the future, but as you're about to see, the future is now.
Meet Ollie, a 3D printed electric bus for about a dozen people with a range of some 120 miles.
The future is now.
David Vosner is an executive with Local Motors, the Arizona-based company behind this 25-mile-per-hour autonomous bus. The 360-degree camera doesn't have a blind spot, and this robo-bus has even more ways of seeing.
It primarily uses radar and LiDAR. We are fully autonomous. So Michael is only here as a safety steward in case of emergency. We are required to have a safety operator on board at all times.
I think I just saw that guy crossing the street.
Right, so it slowed down.
I don't think you would have stopped for that guy crossing the street.
No.
Research bears that out. According to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, out of 38,000 traffic fatalities last year, 94% were caused by human error.
We're just stopping for this lady.
Right.
And she just ran across the street.
Right.
Ollie's he's not getting drunk and driving.
Not getting drunk, not getting distracted and driving.
Not
right?
texting.
Not texting, not watching videos, not watching the news, not talking to the other passengers in the vehicle.
We know that the machine will make mistakes also. Typically not because the machine is drunk or even because it's driving too fast. I can regulate the speed. It'll be for other kinds of reasons.
We caught up with national security consultant Richard Danzig at a defense research conference this year on artificial intelligence.
We tend to think ideally about the human and skeptically about the machine, and we ought to think skeptically about both.
Danzig says that autonomous transport is already safer.
If we look at the experience of piloting large passenger jets, that has become highly automated in important parts of the experience, and we have enough data to know that the automation has by and large increased safety, not decreased it.
With each loop Ollie makes, it's learning?
Yes.
In the early days, even elevators had an attendant on it.
Local Motors' Nick Coles says passengers are comfortable with no one behind the wheel and not worried about a potential movie plotline.
What about the idea of Ollie turning on you and deciding to crash itself into a car? I mean, are people like afraid of that at all?
A little bit of sci-fi there. No, we haven't seen that. It's slow speed. It's in cities. It's on private routes, campuses.
As you can see, autonomous vehicles are already on the road, but there's still a lot of red tape to get through before you see buses like this one on every city street. Gabe LaMonica, CBN News, National Harbor, Maryland.
Well, as millennials migrate to urban areas, many find it's just not practical to drive. It's more cumbersome than it's worth. But now new methods of transportation are springing up all over the country.
That's right, Eric. And as Caitlin Burke reports, technology is upending what it means to own a car.
If you're in the market for a new car, you may want to get a clunker. Experts say car ownership is changing, and they predict that before long, it will look nothing like it has for the past century.
I think the future car ownership is going to be a mixture of private ownership, but an increasing number of people will opt for car sharing and ride sharing services.
If you're looking for a glimpse into the future, add Arlington, Texas to your list of cities to visit. Here in the entertainment district, you can get a chance to ride in an autonomous vehicle. That means there's nobody driving. However, for now, there is a certified operator on board.
Our two main goals with the program are really testing the technology in a real-world environment, and two, educating the public about it and raising awareness. So the technology is very new. It still has some limitations.
If riding around with no driver isn't what you're looking for, you can try Arlington's on-demand rideshare program, VIA.
It is a smartphone app-based service where you can call up a ride. They will come within a block or two of where you're located and drop you off within a block or two of where you'd like to go for a very cheap cost of just $3 per person per trip.
It sounds a lot like Uber or Lyft, the leaders in the rideshare market. The difference is cost.
With Uber or Lyft, the cheapest trip that we could find was about $6, and the most expensive was $14. And we could do all of those same trips with VIA in the service area for $3 per trip.
Our next interview is within VIA's service area, so we decided to test it out. We're sharing this ride in VIA with Ermin. Ermin, where are you going?
I'm going to Santa Post Station.
Do you use VIA a lot?
Yeah, a lot. I work in Dallas, so I usually use VIA in the morning and the evenings to go to work and come back from work.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing our ride with us.
It's a great pleasure.
Another technology company in the rideshare space is Turo.
Turo is a peer-to-peer car sharing marketplace. So we enable car owners who have a car sitting in their driveway to rent it out, and they rent these vehicles to travelers who are looking for a unique experience.
Why let a stranger drive your car? Because it could ultimately help you pay for it.
Well, I may never be able to afford a car like this Tesla, which typically sells for about $107,000. If I buy one and then rent it out when I don't need it, I could theoretically cover the cost of owning it.
Pierre Arnold and his wife started using Turo to rent out their Tesla several years ago.
Initially, we thought it would be fun to just earn a little extra income on the side. And then it turned into a thing where we were making enough money from doing it that it totally pays for both of our cars, even to the point where we bought a second car specifically to put on Turo.
The average owner renting through Turo makes about $500 a month. The Arnolds do so well, they're adding another car to their fleet.
We have a reservation in on a Model 3, so we're going to finalize that very shortly here and then put that up on Turo right away. So our intention with that one is specifically to rent it out.
Even if you aren't looking for luxury, owning a car and getting from here to there costs money.
There are three components into transportation costs. The cost of vehicle ownership, the cost of driving a car, and the cost of public transit.
Shima Hamidi researches transportation affordability and car dependency. She says low-income families pay the most for car ownership, mainly because affordable housing is rarely close to public transportation. Technological advancements could alleviate some of the financial burden on these low-income families by making the need to own a personal vehicle obsolete. Thomas Bamonte is the man charged with steering the Dallas-Fort Worth region of Texas towards the transportation model of the future.
In this phase, it is engaging colleagues and regional partners in just starting to think ahead. What might the future look like when 30%, 50%, 90% of the rides are done via shared mobility?
There's still a lot of uncertainty around how all of the new technology will roll out and its time frame. But Bamonte says the cities who have taken time to prepare will be rewarded. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Arlington, Texas.
And even with all of those transportation options on the ground, perhaps flight is more your thing. A record-breaking flight that looks like it's straight out of science fiction. That story when we come back.
region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Come home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern Gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
It's a thought that's probably crossed your mind when you're sitting in traffic, imagining ways, how do I get around all this stuff on the road out here? Well, there may be a new method, something called, and get this, it's really fun, an Iron Man suit.
That's right. The space-age suit recently broke a record for the fastest jetpack flight to date. The Iron Man's inventor, who calls himself Jetman, very fitting, suited up for the historic ride in Britain. And get this, the Guinness World Record says the flight hit speeds upwards of 85 miles an hour. That's 50 miles per hour faster than the previous record set in 2017. The wind-guided suit has body-controlled jet engines, and its inventor says he was using this new record-shattering flight to show how technology had advanced since the previous record was set.
I know a 9-year-old little boy in my house that would love to wear that suit.
That is very true.
I know a grown man who would love to wear that suit.
Exciting things to come. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.